The human experience is inescapably marked by loneliness. Despite living in a world teeming with people, many individuals carry an inner sense of isolation that permeates their daily lives. Irvin D. Yalom, in his seminal work, Existential Psychotherapy, describes existential isolation as a core source of human suffering. Unlike social isolation, which is the absence of relationships, existential isolation stems from the undeniable reality that we are fundamentally alone in our consciousness. No one can live our life for us, feel our emotions in exactly the same way, or experience our unique perspective of the world. This truth, while often avoided or ignored, is central to the psychological pain many of us experience. Even in moments of companionship, we can feel disconnected, as if a barrier exists between our inner reality and the outer world. It is in this tension between connection and separateness that the seeds of suffering are planted. Loneliness manifests not only as sadness, but also as anxiety, emptiness, and a deep yearning for understanding. It can shape our thoughts, behaviors, and even our sense of self. Yalom emphasizes that existential isolation is a universal human condition, unavoidable yet rarely confronted directly. The discomfort it produces can drive people to seek distractions, immerse themselves in work, or chase external validation, all in an attempt to avoid the silent confrontation with their solitude. Psychologists such as Rollo May and Viktor Frankl further elaborate on this idea, suggesting that the human struggle with isolation is not merely about being alone, but about the search for meaning and connection in a universe that offers no inherent guarantees. Loneliness is, therefore, both a burden and a compass. It signals the need for authentic engagement with ourselves and with others. Yet it is precisely this awareness of our solitude that opens the door to the transformative power of human interaction. The pain of isolation is not intended to remain unmitigated. It calls for response. Through genuine encounters with others, we are reminded that while no one can fully inhabit our personal reality, we can still share fragments of it. Conversations, shared experiences, and acts of empathy provide glimpses into mutual understanding, bridging the gap that separates us from the people around us. In therapeutic settings, Yalom describes how acknowledging existential isolation can become a starting point for profound relational work. By facing the discomfort of solitude rather than denying it, individuals can engage more authentically with those who care for them, establishing bonds that alleviate the psychological weight of isolation. Furthermore, loneliness is not a static condition. It fluctuates with life circumstances, relationships, and our willingness to confront our inner world. Early childhood experiences, traumatic events, and societal pressures can intensify feelings of separateness, but these same factors can be mitigated through intentional, empathetic human contact. Even fleeting moments of connection, a compassionate smile, a listening ear, a heartfelt conversation, can remind us of our shared humanity. In essence, human interaction acts as both a mirror and a balm. It reflects the reality of our isolation while simultaneously soothing its sting. Yalom often illustrates this principle through case studies in his books, highlighting how clients come to understand that loneliness is not a flaw or personal failing, but a universal challenge. In one account, a patient struggling with profound isolation discovers that simply articulating her fears and having them acknowledged by another person diminishes their intensity. The act of being seen, of being recognized as a unique consciousness in a world of other conscious beings, carries a therapeutic power that no external achievement can replicate. This insight underscores a key message. Psychological pain linked to existential isolation is not meant to be endured in silence, but can be eased through deliberate human connection. In a broader sense, understanding the loneliness of the human condition encourages empathy, both toward ourselves and others. When we recognize that everyone harbors this silent struggle, our interactions gain depth and meaning. Relationships are no longer merely social conveniences. They become essential avenues for healing. Each act of listening, sharing, and witnessing another person's experience becomes a thread in the intricate tapestry that binds us, reminding us that though we are ultimately alone in our consciousness, we are never entirely isolated in our existence. Human beings possess an intrinsic need to connect, to be seen, heard, and understood. Authentic connection, relationships that go beyond superficial interactions, has the profound power to relieve psychological pain and foster emotional well-being. Irvin D. Yalom, in Existential Psychotherapy, emphasizes that the therapeutic relationship itself can be a source of healing, illustrating that the very act of genuine human engagement can alleviate suffering. While loneliness and isolation expose the fragility of the human condition, authentic relationships serve as bridges over the chasm of existential pain, offering solace, understanding, and a renewed sense of purpose. Authentic connection is not merely about spending time with others. It is about depth, presence, and mutual recognition. When someone truly sees us, acknowledging both our vulnerabilities and strengths, we experience a validation that reaches the core of our being. This validation counters the internalized beliefs of inadequacy or disconnection that often fuel psychological distress. Yalom often recounts cases in which patients experienced relief simply through the act of being heard without judgment. In these moments, pain diminishes not because it disappears entirely, but because it is shared and witnessed. Empathy, attunement, and non-judgmental presence transform ordinary human interactions into profound therapeutic experiences, whether in therapy, friendships, or familial relationships. Furthermore, authentic connection allows individuals to confront and process emotional pain safely. In moments of vulnerability, we risk judgment and rejection. Yet when met with acceptance, we discover that pain can become less intimidating. For example, a patient grappling with grief may find that articulating their sorrow in the presence of a compassionate listener transforms despair into understanding. The listener's empathy functions as a mirror, reflecting the emotional truth that the sufferer may have been unable to acknowledge fully within themselves. This reflection, in turn, fosters insight, emotional regulation, and the realization that one is not alone in the struggle. Psychologists such as Rollo May and Carl Rogers have similarly emphasized that human connection, rooted in authenticity and empathy, promotes healing by allowing individuals to feel seen and understood rather than isolated in their suffering. Importantly, the healing potential of authentic connection is not confined to formal therapeutic settings. Everyday human interactions, when approached with sincerity and attentiveness, can cultivate the same transformative effects. Small gestures of attentiveness, honest conversations, and compassionate listening contribute to the mitigation of psychological pain. The act of being fully present with another person, without distraction or pretense, communicates acknowledgement and respect for their emotional reality. This simple yet profound engagement can break the cyclical patterns of isolation, anxiety, and despair that often dominate the inner lives of those suffering from emotional pain. Yalom also highlights the relational dimension of growth, noting that authentic connections encourage self-reflection and emotional openness. In relationships marked by honesty and mutual understanding, individuals often confront aspects of themselves previously hidden or denied. Through this process, emotional burdens are not only eased, but transformed into opportunities for personal development. Human connection thus functions both as a palliative force and a catalyst for self-awareness, encouraging individuals to engage with their emotional experiences rather than avoid them. The relational encounter becomes a dynamic space where suffering is acknowledged, shared, and ultimately reframed. Moreover, authentic connection fosters resilience by providing a foundation of trust and mutual support. In the face of existential anxiety, depression, or trauma, individuals anchored in meaningful relationships are better equipped to navigate adversity. The reassurance that one's experiences, emotions, and existence are acknowledged and valued allows for a stabilization of the self that mitigates psychological distress. As Yalom emphasizes, the relational sphere is not merely a comfort, it is a vital component of emotional survival and growth. Genuine human engagement transforms isolation into community, despair into hope, and vulnerability into courage. Ultimately, the healing power of authentic connection rests on its capacity to validate, support, and transform. By fostering empathy, recognition, and mutual understanding, relationships serve as essential tools in alleviating psychological pain. They remind us that, while suffering may be an inevitable part of life, we do not endure it in solitude. The shared human experience of connection allows individuals to reclaim a sense of belonging and meaning, demonstrating that the simple act of truly encountering another person can serve as a profound remedy for the wounds of the soul. Vulnerability is often perceived as weakness, yet in reality, it is one of the most powerful forces in human connection. Sharing one's fears, insecurities, and emotional struggles with another person creates a bridge between isolated consciousnesses, allowing the deeply private world of the self to meet the awareness of another. Irvin D. Yalom, in Existential Psychotherapy, emphasizes that the acknowledgement of one's vulnerabilities in a safe relational space can be profoundly therapeutic. It transforms solitude into connection, fear into trust, and psychological pain into shared experience. Vulnerability, therefore, is not a liability. It is the currency of authentic human interaction. When individuals allow themselves to be vulnerable, they expose parts of themselves that are often hidden from the world. These moments, though accompanied by fear of judgment or rejection, carry immense potential for intimacy and understanding. Yalom's work in group therapy illustrates this beautifully. Patients who hesitated to speak of their deepest anxieties often experienced a release of psychological tension once they dared to voice them. Others in the group, recognizing their own fears mirrored in the speaker, responded with empathy, validation, and solidarity. In this interplay, vulnerability becomes a conduit for connection, reinforcing the notion that suffering is not only personal, but also inherently human. Shared vulnerability operates as a bridge because it invites reciprocity. When one person discloses inner pain or fear, it signals to others that it is safe to do the same. This mutual openness generates a relational rhythm where honesty and trust flourish. As Rollo May, another prominent existential psychologist, observed, the courage to be vulnerable enables people to encounter one another authentically, fostering bonds that are deeper and more meaningful than those grounded in superficial politeness or performance. In practice, this means that the act of revealing one's struggles is simultaneously an act of invitation, encouraging others to share their experiences and thereby alleviating isolation on both sides. Importantly, shared vulnerability does not eliminate pain, but it reframes it. When psychological suffering is expressed within the context of understanding and empathy, it loses its sense of being an individual burden. The recognition that others face similar fears and challenges validates one's emotional reality, reducing shame, anxiety, and the sense of alienation. Yalom notes that this shared acknowledgement can catalyze profound therapeutic shifts. Individuals come to see that while they are alone in their personal experience, they are not alone in experiencing human fragility. The bridge created by vulnerability supports both self-compassion and relational empathy. This principle extends beyond psychotherapy into daily life. Friends, partners, and family members who are willing to reveal their authentic selves create relational spaces where others feel safe to do the same. Vulnerability fosters an emotional resonance that strengthens bonds, and provides a buffer against the isolating effects of existential angst. Even small disclosures, admitting uncertainty, expressing fear, or sharing a personal struggle can have cumulative effects, gradually transforming interactions into sources of comfort, understanding, and mutual growth. The bridge formed through vulnerability is often subtle but enduring, supporting individuals in navigating the complexities of their inner and outer worlds. Moreover, vulnerability and empathy are mutually reinforcing. When one person shares openly, the listener is invited to respond with authentic attention and care, deepening relational attunement. Yalom emphasizes that this dynamic is central to existential psychotherapy. Healing occurs not through advice or analysis alone, but through the relational experience of being genuinely seen, heard, and accepted. In essence, shared vulnerability humanizes suffering, converting abstract pain into an opportunity for relational meaning. The connection forged in these moments serves as a reminder that emotional wounds, while personal, can also be a point of communal empathy and support. Ultimately, embracing vulnerability as a bridge transforms psychological pain into relational opportunity. It challenges the instinct to hide suffering, demonstrating that openness is not a threat, but a pathway to profound human understanding. The courage to reveal one's inner struggles, met with compassion and recognition from another, alleviates isolation, deepens connection, and fosters a sense of shared humanity. In this way, vulnerability becomes more than an emotional act. It becomes a lifeline, linking conscious beings in the mutual pursuit of solace, understanding, and healing. Empathy is one of the most profound tools through which human interaction can alleviate psychological pain. To be empathic is to enter, however briefly, into the emotional world of another person, to perceive their feelings without judgment, and to communicate that perception in a way that is both validating and supportive. Irvin D. Yalom, in Existential Psychotherapy, emphasizes that empathy in therapy is not a passive understanding, but an active engagement that transforms the way suffering is experienced. When individuals feel truly understood, the isolating nature of psychological pain begins to diminish because it is no longer endured in silence, but shared within a relational context. Mirroring is closely intertwined with empathy. When another person reflects back our emotions, thoughts, or experiences, it confirms our existence and validates the reality of our inner world. This process allows individuals to recognize that their feelings are acknowledged and comprehended, creating a sense of coherence and self-recognition that can be deeply healing. In therapeutic settings, Yalom describes how the simple act of verbalizing emotions and having them mirrored by a therapist can lessen the intensity of psychological distress. The individual experiences a tangible reassurance that their subjective reality is both recognized and respected, a critical step in alleviating suffering. The impact of empathy extends beyond mere recognition. It facilitates emotional processing and integration. When someone communicates understanding without criticism or dismissal, it provides a safe space for exploration of painful feelings. Emotional suffering that has been ignored, suppressed, or misunderstood often intensifies over time, leading to cycles of anxiety, depression, or self-doubt. Empathy interrupts these cycles by offering acknowledgement and compassion, reducing the perceived threat of emotional exposure. Psychologists such as Carl Rogers have long highlighted the curative power of empathic presence, asserting that feeling understood is not only comforting, but essential for psychological growth. Mirroring also fosters self-awareness. By seeing our own emotions reflected through the eyes of another, we gain insights into patterns, triggers, and underlying concerns that may have remained unconscious. This relational feedback loop is a cornerstone of many psychotherapeutic approaches, including Yalom's existential therapy. Patients often report that simply hearing their feelings echoed back by a caring observer allows them to identify nuances they had previously missed. In this way, empathy and mirroring not only alleviate suffering, but also enhance the individual's capacity for introspection and emotional clarity. Human connection, enriched with empathy, does more than soothe. It builds trust and deepens intimacy. In everyday life, moments of genuine understanding, when a friend, partner, or family member truly listens and resonates with our emotions, can be profoundly restorative. Such experiences counteract the alienation caused by existential isolation, reminding us that our inner world matters and that we are not navigating our pain alone. The relational encounter becomes a shared space in which suffering is validated, processed, and transformed into an opportunity for emotional relief and growth. Furthermore, empathy and mirroring are not limited to verbal communication. Non-verbal cues, attentive gestures, facial expressions, tone of voice, and body language play a crucial role in conveying understanding. Yalom emphasizes that the therapeutic relationship encompasses both verbal and non-verbal dimensions, and that the perception of genuine presence often communicates more than words alone. In everyday interactions, these subtle signals create a sense of being fully attended to, fostering trust, reducing anxiety, and alleviating the sense of isolation that accompanies psychological pain. Ultimately, empathy and mirroring demonstrate the extraordinary capacity of human beings to influence each other's emotional landscapes. When we feel understood, our pain is not erased, but it becomes less threatening, less isolating, and more manageable. Through empathetic engagement and reflective mirroring, human interaction transforms psychological suffering into a shared experience, reinforcing our connection to one another and reminding us of our intrinsic relational nature. The act of being truly seen and heard is a powerful antidote to the existential solitude that underlies much of human distress, revealing that understanding itself can be a profound form of healing. Human beings are social creatures, and our interactions with multiple individuals at once can create unique opportunities for psychological healing. Group dynamics, particularly in therapeutic or supportive settings, provide a framework in which suffering is shared, understood, and transformed. Irvin D. Yalom, in The Theory and Practice of Group Psychotherapy, emphasizes that group therapy is not merely a setting for discussion. It is a microcosm of human society in which essential psychological processes unfold. Within these groups, individuals discover that their experiences, anxieties, and insecurities are not singular or shameful, but shared among others, creating a profound sense of relief and belonging. In group settings, the principle of universality, the recognition that others share similar struggles, plays a pivotal role. Yalom observes that many patients enter therapy feeling unique in their suffering, isolated by the belief that no one else could possibly understand them. Within a group, however, they encounter peers with comparable challenges, fears, or emotional wounds. This realization alone alleviates psychological pain, as isolation is replaced by a shared human experience. Members witness one another's vulnerability, courage, and resilience, reinforcing the understanding that pain is a universal aspect of existence. The normalization of suffering within a group context diminishes shame, reduces self-criticism, and fosters acceptance of one's emotional reality. Group dynamics also facilitate interpersonal learning. By observing interactions between others and reflecting on one's own behaviors in the group context, individuals gain insight into patterns of thought, communication, and emotional response. Yalom notes that these insights are particularly potent because they emerge within a social context where consequences, feedback, and relational nuances are immediate and tangible. Individuals learn how their emotional expressions affect others and how empathy, support, and conflict resolution can enhance connection. The group thus becomes a laboratory for human experience, offering lessons that cannot be fully replicated in isolation or in one-on-one therapy. Another critical aspect of group dynamics is the provision of mutual support. In times of psychological pain, the knowledge that others are willing to bear witness, offer encouragement, and share coping strategies creates a profound sense of security. Support is not unidirectional. Every member benefits from both giving and receiving empathy. Yalom emphasizes that the act of helping another person is itself healing, as it reinforces a sense of competence, purpose, and connection. Through mutual support, group members experience a network of relational resilience that buffers against the destabilizing effects of anxiety, depression, and existential despair. The relational intensity of group settings also amplifies the power of shared vulnerability and empathy. When individuals disclose personal struggles to multiple listeners, they encounter a diversity of responses, perspectives, and forms of understanding. Each act of witnessing and empathizing reinforces the individual's sense of being seen and acknowledged, magnifying the therapeutic effect. The collective witnessing of suffering transforms private pain into communal awareness, creating an emotional resonance that is deeply restorative. Yalom's work underscores that the relational fabric of the group is itself a healing agent, as the group becomes a space where connection, understanding, and acceptance are experienced in a concentrated form. Beyond the confines of formal therapy, group dynamics operate in everyday social structures, such as support groups, spiritual communities, or collaborative projects. In these environments, similar principles apply. Individuals experience universality, mutual support, and relational learning. The cumulative effect of these interactions strengthens emotional resilience, reduces the sense of existential isolation, and reinforces the understanding that human suffering is a shared condition rather than a personal failing. The collective dimension of group interaction demonstrates that healing is not solely an individual endeavor, but a relational phenomenon, arising from the interplay of multiple human consciousnesses. Ultimately, group dynamics reveal the extraordinary potential of human interaction to alleviate psychological pain. By creating spaces in which suffering is recognized, mirrored, and normalized, groups foster belonging, empathy, and mutual growth. The relational intensity of group life transforms isolation into connection, despair into solidarity, and vulnerability into relational courage. Yalom's insights remind us that while individuals may carry pain within themselves, it is within the social web of human interaction that true psychological relief often emerges, highlighting the indispensable role of connection in the human experience. Human suffering, while inevitable, can be transformed into profound meaning through the vehicle of relationships. Irvin D. Yalom in Existential Psychotherapy emphasizes that while pain is an inescapable aspect of the human condition, our engagement with others offers a pathway toward understanding, growth, and transcendence. Relationships provide a relational mirror through which individuals can reinterpret their suffering, discover purpose, and integrate their experiences into a coherent narrative of the self. Through connection, isolation diminishes, and pain becomes a lens through which the richness and complexity of human existence are revealed. Meaning emerges in relationships because they allow individuals to bear witness to one another's experiences. Sharing emotional struggles with another person does more than offer comfort. It validates existence and transforms suffering into a shared human experience. Yalom illustrates that when individuals are authentically encountered, their pain is acknowledged rather than ignored, fostering a sense of significance. This acknowledgement, particularly when met with empathy, compassion, and understanding, reframes suffering from a purely personal burden into a relational phenomenon that carries the potential for growth. The very act of being present with someone who listens, cares, and reflects understanding elevates pain into a meaningful exchange. Through relationships, individuals gain perspective on their suffering. Pain, when isolated, often feels meaningless, overwhelming, or unfair. Yet, within the context of a supportive relationship, it can be interpreted as a catalyst for self-awareness, emotional resilience, and relational depth. Yalom describes cases where patients, by engaging authentically with others, discovered that their anxieties, losses, or existential fears were not only comprehensible, but also integral to their personal development. Relationships thus serve as interpretive spaces in which emotional experiences can be contextualized, integrated, and imbued with significance. Moreover, relational meaning-making fosters a sense of continuity and purpose. When individuals feel that their experiences matter to others, suffering is no longer endured in isolation. Each relational encounter, whether with a therapist, friend, family member, or community, provides opportunities for reflection, insight, and emotional synthesis. Viktor Frankl, another existential psychologist, emphasizes that finding meaning, even in the face of profound suffering, is essential to psychological survival. Relationships serve as the conduit for this meaning, transforming individual pain into shared understanding and collective human experience. The relational act of listening, empathizing, and supporting allows individuals to witness their suffering as part of a larger, interconnected human story. Transforming pain into meaning also involves the recognition of relational responsibility. Yalom notes that the relational dimension of existence carries with it the capacity to influence others positively, to offer comfort, and to contribute to shared growth. In caring for and being cared for by others, individuals find purpose, direction, and significance in their experiences. Psychological pain is reframed not as a personal failing or an insurmountable burden, but as a force that strengthens bonds, cultivates empathy, and deepens relational authenticity. In this way, suffering becomes a medium for meaningful connection and relational enrichment. Finally, the transformative power of relationships extends to existential reconciliation. Pain is an inevitable companion, yet when processed through connection, it provides insight into the core of human existence: mortality, freedom, isolation, and meaning. Yalom asserts that understanding and embracing these existential realities within relational contexts fosters emotional maturity, self-compassion, and the capacity for authentic living. Relationships, therefore, are not only a means of alleviating immediate psychological pain, but also a vehicle for existential growth, guiding individuals toward a more integrated, meaningful, and fulfilled life. In conclusion, relationships are among the most potent instruments for transforming human suffering into meaningful experience. By offering empathy, validation, and shared understanding, they turn the isolating and often overwhelming nature of pain into a relational phenomenon rich with purpose. Yalom's existential perspective underscores that while suffering is universal, its meaning is co-created in the space between human beings. Through authentic connection, vulnerability, and mutual engagement, psychological pain can be reframed not merely as something to endure, but as a gateway to insight, growth, and profound human understanding. Relationships, in essence, convert anguish into significance, demonstrating that connection is both a balm for suffering and a source of enduring existential meaning. If this video resonated with you, don't forget to hit like and subscribe for more insights into the human mind and emotional growth. Share your thoughts in the comments. Your experiences and reflections could help someone else feel less alone. Turn on notifications so you never miss a new video, and join our community where we explore the power of connection, healing, and meaning together. Remember, every interaction has the potential to transform your life. Stay curious, stay connected, and keep exploring the depths of what it means to be human.